solid in the cup, isn't it? So here's a thing. Let's get the glass cover.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Do you know what the crack is?
What?
It's a crack. But I'll tell you something funny. If you knock this wall down, the crack would stay put because the crack isn't in the wall.
Where is it then?
Everywhere. In everything. It's a split in the skin of the world. Two parts of space and time that should never have touched. Pressed together.
Hey, dickheads! Like a pink laser beam of truth beaming straight from San Diego, California to your brain hole. We have transmitted our signal from alternate Earth to you and are ready to talk about our favorite Philip K. Dick novel, The Crack in Space.
Showing our hand early, David.
Yeah.
Well, hey. This is our last episode of the season, and we're going to take a little break after this one. And so get your hot takes ready and off the griddle, because we got a good one here to talk about, anyways. Not necessarily. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah.
But the Crack in Space is the one we're going to talk about today. To my left is
Anthony Planet Wedding Trevino. That's me.
Yeah. I'm David Agronoff, author of Goddamn Killing Machines and Punk Rock Ghost Story. And
I'm Langhorne J. Tweed.
Yeah! That's my dude.
all right. We have not recorded basically anything since Dr. Blood Money, so
It's true, Dr. Brood Money.
okay. But we can start off with the PKD news. And first and foremost,
Still dead.
Still
well,
moving on.
Moving on.
in a similar note, but I think an interesting fact to note is that Blade Runner is now in the past. As of the recording of this,
Yeah.
we are now in December 2019,
Mm-hmm.
and Blade Runner is a historical document now. So,
Oh, that means Escape from New York's been a
Oh yeah, that one's long
historical
gone.
document for a while now.
yeah, it has been a historical document. But I think it was kind of neat to see that at the beginning of November and at the end of the month, there were a lot of people noting this historic event on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. It was kind of neat to see a lot of love out there for Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And the other thing going on in current history with, or current time with Philip K. Dick is that the final season of Man in the High Castle just came out. So that's a pretty big deal, considering that keeps Philip K. Dick in the consciousness.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that are really excited about the final season.
Yeah, I just started season 3 myself, and I thought the premiere for season 3 was really, really strong, which is good because I kind of waffled on season 2, but I really did like the premiere of season 3. So I'm gonna, hopefully by the next time we record, I will have finished seasons 3 and 4. Although I like to watch shows very slowly because I like to watch 1 week at a time, basically, like all the different shows I watch.
Right.
So you don't binge watch shows then?
I do not binge watch shows.
Yeah.
I do not. I did when I was forced to because I was getting shows on DVD from the library. The next segment is Dicklike Suggestions, and I believe, Anthony, you have a Dicklike Suggestion this time.
Awesome.
I do. Am I going first? Is that what that meant?
Yeah, you're going first.
So, in between reading other books, I've been making my way through Eric Davis's Nomad Codes, Adventures in Modern Esoterica. Basically a collection of essays that he's written for the last, 2 decades. It's not a new book, but it covers everything from psychedelic drugs to Lovecraft, Philip K. Dick, Gnosticism, and all kinds of things, dubstep, the roots of reggae.
Is he freelance or does he work for a magazine? Or
I think
something?
he's worked in the past. I think he's worked for Wired
and some
bunch
other
of other
okay
outlets like that. But
I've heard him on Coast to Coast.
Yeah, and Eric Davis is somebody who I actually found out about through one of my other favorite podcasts called Weird Studies. So eventually I'd like to have him on DickHeads so we could talk Philip K. Dick, because he's a huge Dick fan.
Langhorne, do you have a Dicklike suggestion this week? And is it a video game?
I do, and it's not.
Whoa!
What is it then?
Whoa.
So I'm
Is it
a
a Pornhub simulation?
oh, we need a simulation for Pornhub.
I mean, VR's a thing now.
They do have VR porn. I've heard of it. I mean, from friends. I mean, from people I don't know. From no one. I don't know what I'm talking about. There's no such thing. Anyway, the thing I'm a big YouTuber, right? I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I try to post stuff on YouTube. But there's a channel on YouTube called Corridor Crew, which is a bunch of special effects guys who got together after working a bunch of jobs in LA, and they formed their own company, and they make short films that are based on or that try to focus on special effects and stunts and doing stuff like that. So they make videos about the making of their stuff, but they do stunt videos. They have stuntmen on, and they talk about doing stunts and good stunts and bad stunts, and they talk about good special effects and bad special effects.
Right on.
Things like that. And I guess it ties to Dick because, you know, a lot of Dick's movies that they make are special effects heavy and stunt heavy and all that stuff. So
Because
it's a good channel to check out. Corridor Crew.
I think we tend to still see a Dick property and then say action movie.
Yeah.
With the exception of like a handful of other movies.
Yeah. Adjustment Bureau.
Scanner Darkly.
Not falling for it.
Um,
Fucking magic hand.
okay, that sounds interesting. Was it Corridor Channel?
Corridor Crew.
Corridor Crew. Corridor
On
Crew.
YouTube.
On YouTube. I will check it out.
What's your recommendation, David?
I've got 2 books that I read in the last month that I think are Dicklike suggestions. One is Million Mile Road Trip by Rudy Rucker, which is the first novel Rudy Rucker has released since 2013. And if you're not familiar with Professor Rucker, he is one of the original cyberpunks, the first winner of the Philip K. Dick Award in 1982 with his novel Software. And he was a famous mathematician, and he's a big surfer in Santa Cruz. And he writes really gonzo, crazy, weird science fiction. And Million Mile Road Trip is really freaking weird science fiction. And it's about some teenagers who decide after a surfing trip that they're going to go on a road trip, and they put giant monster truck wheels on their station wagon and travel through space and time and end up at a place called Mappy World. And it is really fucking...
Mappy?
Yeah, and then they find out that these living flying saucers are planning on invading the Earth from this other dimension, and they have to stop it. It's really funny. It's really good. It might be 100 pages too long. But I read it when I was on the way back from my father's funeral in Indiana, so I was a little out of it when I read it. And then the other one I'm going to go a little shorter on is by Karen Lord, and she's a one-time physics teacher turned Afro-Caribbean science fiction writer, and she wrote a murder mystery called Unraveling that takes place inside a memory labyrinth with this, where they're trying to solve the mystery of this murder in this, it's in a memory labyrinth, time and memory labyrinth. It is
Really?
a really crazy weird book and super good. It's one of the best books I read this year. And what was hilarious is when I went to Goodreads, I saw a bunch of reviews saying, huh? And
That's very reminiscent of all the reviews of Three Stigmata I read that weren't all about it.
Right.
We're just, huh?
Yeah.
What happened in this book?
Right. And so I thought Unraveling was genius, but I was afraid people wouldn't get it. And when I read a bunch of the reviews on Goodreads, I was like, it was very painful.
A bunch of people didn't get it.
A bunch of people didn't get it. But I think DickHeads will really enjoy this. It's Unraveling by Karen Lord.
That's how I feel every time I read a review for Cody Goodfellow's Perfect Union.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When people go, what? Which is, in my opinion, the best horror novel of the last 20 years. I
It's
just
in my top 10.
want to take an opportunity. This is not related, and the movie could probably suck, but I want everybody, when it comes out, to go see Richard
Rise of
Stanley's adaptation of The Color Out of Space.
Rise of Skywalker?
Shut up, because it looks amazing, and I love Richard Stanley.
Yeah, I've heard lots of good stuff about that.
What is
that movie,
who is
and
Richard Stanley?
He's a weird filmmaker. Didn't he make Lair of the White Witch?
Oh, really?
Hardware.
Oh, he did Hardware?
He did
Yeah.
Hardware
I
and
love
Dust
that
Devil.
movie.
Yeah, he made a couple movies, and then he basically was put in director jail
Yeah,
for years.
yeah, and then he was the original director of The Island of Dr. Moreau,
Okay.
and then
That's why he got thrown in director jail.
and
Yeah.
then I forget what
They canned
the
him
issue
or
was. They
something,
canned him, but if you get a chance to watch the documentary, which
Yeah, I actually I have seen that.
that documentary is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And Richard Stanley, cool dude. I hung out with him and Cody at Lovecraft Film Fest a few years ago. Humble brag, yeah. But anyway,
Sorry, there's some names on the floor there.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. Let me do it. I don't get to do it very often. But I watched the trailer for The Color Out of Space, and I just don't think we get enough of these over-the-top psychedelic type movies.
Right.
With the exception of, Mandy.
So apparently Nick Cage is in both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I just want to
Yeah.
kind of see movies like that more supported so I can go see more of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a tangent, not related to PKD, sorry.
Yeah, and Nicolas Cage is doing like 10 completely shit direct-to-streaming junk
But for
in
every
order
one,
to pay for that.
for
Yeah.
every one movie's pretty good.
Yeah, 1 out of 12 ain't so bad when you make the ones that Nick Cage is making. Yeah, I thought Color Out of Space looked good too. I had a lot of friends that were at Lovecraft Fest when it played in Portland, and the buzz is that it was good. However, when you see a movie in that environment, sometimes you're a little bit more forgiving. I don't know. So
Oh, yeah.
we'll see.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sure. I saw Mandy in a mostly empty theater with Brandon, and it's still great.
Yeah, I loved Mandy too. It's on my best of the decade list.
Yeah.
So, but
What else do we do on this podcast?
well,
That's it. We're done. Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Nice try.
PSA, you should always
This
wrap it
book
up.
was released in 1966.
David, what was happening in 1960 and 6?
Well, in 1966,
Oh, but if David were more of an edgelord, he would have said 19666.
definitely not that much of an edgelord. Sorry. That was a year that Miranda rights warnings became law. So, China's
Interesting.
Cultural Revolution began. There was a subway strike in New York. Miniskirts were in fashion, according to the internet. But
Miranda writes, mini skirts were on fire.
And Charles Whitman killed 14 and injured 31 on a killing spree at the University of Texas, which is one of the first real famous mass
shootings.
Yeah, and a very famous one.
That was that's the clock tower one, right?
Yes, inspired the Stephen King story. What was Cain Rose Up, I believe.
You know better. If you don't know, then I certainly don't know.
In Skeleton Crew. And that was the year that the U.S. really ramped up Vietnam, sending over 500,000 troops to Vietnam, a really tiny country, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So that's what was happening in 1966. And around that time, our friend Phil K. Dick released The Crack in Space.
Yeah.
The Crack
In space. Wow, guys, we are walking that line of being a Howard Stern show. Let's not do that.
Yeah. So, Crack in Space was written directly after Phil finished Clans of the Alphane Moon.
So shocking.
and right before he wrote Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch.
Also shocking.
Yeah, so...
So he just took a big giant turd in between two good books.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm not a huge fan of the clans, so...
Which
but,
I
What?
was.
Yeah, but I know you guys are. I know.
It's all subjective.
Oh, that's
man.
right. That's the one where you want just a totally different book.
Yeah, I wanted a different book. But,
Well, if you just change the main character, make it a different person, and then change the plot, it's a great
I
story.
didn't want to change the plot. I just wanted to change who the POV was. That's all. With Clans of the Alphane Moon. But we're not talking about Clans of the Alphane Moon. We're talking about,
But we did in episode 25.
yeah, the crack
In space.
in space. The crack in
Smoking
space.
crack in space.
And of course, because it's Philip K. Dick, he had a really bad title for it before the crack.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
I cannot wait. I didn't look at the notes this time, so I cannot wait to hear what this title was.
Okay, the original title refers to
A Tear in the Sky.
the short title in English, The Sleeper's Awake of Box Cantata BWV 140.
Well, Cantata
Cantata?
141
So it,
is an alternate title to this book.
yes, so the novelette, the original novelette was Cantata.
Cantata?
I'm sorry, I'm not a classical music guy. Cantata 140, which... So apparently Phil K. Dick thought, you know what this book needs is a really obscure classical music.
Well, it's not obscure. I mean, it's Bach. So,
Well, I think it would be obscure for most people. I don't know, maybe in 1966 there was more awareness of...
yeah, I'm not saying that's a good title in any
It's
way,
not a
shape, or
good title.
form.
Yeah, it's a bad title.
But I don't know how obscure it is.
So yeah, so the original, the short title, that Sleeper's Awake is kind of the idea that he was getting at. So from the reference to Bach. And the first half of this novel was published under that title as a novelette.
Is it it's 140?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was 141, which I thought would be better because it would be, one after the Bach concertos.
No, it's the
But
same.
of course not. No, why would it?
No. It's the same. So he basically named the novelette after, or the original title of the novel was this concerto from Bach. So the
Or an opera.
LA
Operetta?
Literary Agency got the manuscript for the novelette on September 9th, 1963. The finished novel came on March 17th, 1964. So here's the thing. When he says it's written between Clans and Three Stigmata, the novelette was written before, and all the short stories that make it up were written before Clans. But between Clans and Three Stigmata, he punched it up into a novel.
So he was like, let's make this leftover quiche
Yeah.
that tastes like shit.
Well, yeah, you
pretty
can
much.
say that. Yeah. So it was first published in February 1966 by Ace Books. And there are
Let's take all these leftovers and make goulash.
Yeah.
Oh man, I do like goulash though.
So the three short stories that fed into this, and we'll get into each of these stories. I read two of the three to prepare for this, but our prominent author, Stand By, and What'll We Do with Raglan Park. There's bits and pieces of all.
Raglan Park?
Raglan Park. That's
Is
the
that a
one.
name?
Yes, and that was the
Nice.
story I could not find, that I did not have, so I could not read that one. So, I mean, I could have put more energy into it, but I didn't think it was that important. But in June 1964, in a letter to James Bliss, BKD refers to Cantata 140, which he said was a cut-down version of a 60,000-word novel, hence somewhat aborted.
Ew.
Yeah, and so there, you do wonder when you read this quote in this letter that maybe perhaps there is a version of the novel first, but from all indications, it appears that he punched it up and turned it into a novel after the novelette was sent to the literary agency.
Okay.
But that's where there's controversy over when it was written So there is that controversy. It's funny. There's no quotes from Phil on this book. He never talked about it. He didn't really, other than that one quote in that James Blish letter. Terry Carr, who was an editor at Ace Books at the time, has a funny story. And he said, quote,
My favorite story about Ace's title changes has to do with another Phil Dick book, which he called Cantata 140. It concerned, among other things, a whorehouse in orbit around Earth. When I saw the memo that said the title had been changed to The Kraken Space, I rushed into Don's office and explained the double entendre to him. Oh, man. I just got that.
Yeah.
He'd intended the title to refer to a leakage between dimensions in the novel. Don said, oh, well, no one will notice. And that's kind of true. I didn't notice.
Yeah, but it is funny.
I can't imagine AD being so, in air quotes, vulgar. But
Really?
then again...
Boob Mountain?
Then again, he does go to great lengths in this book to make sure we all know that Sparky has fully huge tits.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Every
does.
time she shows up, almost. Go ahead, David.
So, well, I don't think, as always, I think the Kraken Space is a Don Wilhelm title. I don't think Phil came up with it.
Right, that's why Don Wilhelm was like, nah, it's fine, it's my title. No one will
have a
think
problem
anything bad about it.
with my title. Anyways, Wilhelm, was the one that came up with the title or the name Kraken Space. And apparently, Wilhelm might have had a role in suggesting that he worked some of these ideas together from these different short stories. That is rumored, but I couldn't find any proof of that. So, I'll just
That would make sense. I mean, because it lacks a singular vision in the book, so.
Yeah.
Well, it's a real World Jones-made situation.
Yeah, it's exactly a World Jones-made situation.
And that would make sense because the first story that originated this concept, Prominent Author, was received at the
And what storyline is that?
Prominent Author? Well, I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
No, let's hear about it first, then we'll find out what it was about.
The SMLA agency got Prominent Author on April 20th, 1953. So Prominent Author
Was one of those old stories in its short story heyday.
Yeah, that was during his year of most...
Before Old Man Van Vogt was like, you're getting nowhere, kid.
Exactly. You gotta be writing novels, kid.
Oh, man. I want more of Larry as Van Vogt.
So the agency had placed it at, or the first time it was published was in May 1954, and then the story was selected for his first collection, Handful of Darkness, which, of course, was where the first story that became Puppets was published.
Mm-hmm.
And so this story definitely is a precursor to Kraken Space, because it has the Jiffy Scuttler in it. Which is the shortcut where you can transport yourself through space and time, open up kind of a tunnel. So there's that. And so where this is different in Prominent Author is that the guy kind of goes through the scuttler, he goes back in time, and then finds out that he, I believe, like, he ended up writing the Bible.
Yeah, that's the story he tells.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Ellis. The character Ellis, who's not in the novel but talked about, was the first one to find the time travel portal in a Jiffy Scuttler.
Which is interesting because this is a rare case of PKD referring back to another story that he wrote as canon within the story.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing.
He doesn't do that. He's not like King.
No. I mean, he uses the same terms over and over again, like concept and
autofac
and psi powers.
Oh, what is the one for
wheel?
Oh no, that's for car. Autofac, right? That's what he calls.
No, that's automatic factories.
Oh, then what is his car one?
Wheel.
No, it's not wheel, jackass.
Yeah, it is wheel.
No, it's not.
He calls cars wheels.
No, he calls them autos. That's what it is.
Autos.
He does call them autos, but they are wheels as well.
Precog. He uses for precog all the time.
There wasn't a precog in this book.
No.
Which is
for each
very rare.
What does he call a newspaper?
Homeopapes?
Homeopapes are all over the place. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know where he got homeopapes from, but
Yeah.
But anyways, so prominent author, I do think it's interesting that it is referred to in the novel, and that is a cool thing. So the second story, which was originally titled Top Standby Job, and would be eventually retitled by the magazine that published it as Standby, which was published in October 1963, and it was received in April of that year at the literary agency, so it was quickly published. But anyways, it's a Dick story that in Standby, Earth is invaded by creatures from outer space, and the United States is being governed by a giant supercomputer, kind of Vulcan's hammer-ish.
Okay.
And there's a human standby president who is just ready to kind of jump in and take the job.
So like a simulacra.
Yeah, and so, but it has...
But it's a real person.
Right, and I believe Jim Baskin is actually the standby president.
Okay.
You mean Jim Briskin?
Whatever his name is.
Whatever his name is, kid.
Jim Baskin, heir to the Baskin-Robbins fortune.
Right.
And also the first African-American president.
Yeah. I also believe that I think some of the BIP thing was in there with the people. There was mention of people sleeping, but I could be wrong about that.
Bibs.
And then the BIPs. And then as far as the last story goes, I couldn't find out. I didn't find much about that, so I didn't read that story, so I don't have any notes on that. But those two are really crucial and kind of play a role, but I think more so prominent author. But prominent author has fed other works, including, I believe that there's bits and pieces of Penultimate Truth in prominent author as well.
Okay.
So I'd have to go back and look, but it is my understanding that is kind of what's going on there. But yeah, not a lot of writing and publication history on the crack in space. There is not a ton about it. So we're ready for...
Oh, it's that time!
What time?
Story breakdown.
No, we're just still doing that thing? Okay. Bing.
Dun.
I'm going to put my jacket on. I'm about to get blown away by this hot take.
Oh boy. Here we go.
I want to die fashionably cute.
Fashionably cute. Put the glasses on, too, then.
This might be a good time for the anchor hat.
All right.
Oh, boy.
God. So here's my book report on this piece of shit. So we start by meeting the useless couple and the useless assassin. We don't know he's a useless assassin yet, but he's useless. The couple are useless. And then we meet some other people that are useless. And then we go through this useless book, and then we cry. Done. No, wait. All right.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work. Come
yeah,
on.
All right. But we do meet a couple who want to become bibs because they don't have any money, and they are a black couple, and we find out that the world is overpopulated, or at least the U.S. It's very unclear. Everything is unclear in this. It's a foggy crystal ball the whole time. But we meet them, and then we find out that they're pregnant, and they can't become bibs if they're pregnant. And they're like, what? We don't know. And so the racist guy behind the counter is like, get out of here. Go see an abortion doctor, abortion analysis person. So they're like, all right, they leave. Then we meet some other people. We meet Jim, boring ass fucking presidential candidate, who is basically like a right wing Republican nowadays would be, because although he's high and on the hog on his moral high horse, He's anti-sex. He's anti-doing anything. He really has no emotions to speak of.
He's boring as fuck.
He is boring as fuck. And we meet his campaign manager, who is a dickbag. He is just a full-on bag of dicks. Treats his wife like shit, is always ordering her around and being an asshole, and has a bunch of bad ideas, but still maintains his job somehow. And so we meet them. Then we meet this mechanic who's working on this car for this rich surgeon whose wife is getting a divorce from him. And we really don't care about that guy too much until he does some stuff later. So that's Dr. Suckett. Doctor.
I'm gonna be honest, until you did this, you're
Glad
doing this,
I'm
I
not
forgot
sick.
about that character.
Yeah. There's a lot to forget about. I can't even. Lurton Sands. He has a great name, though. Lurton Sands.
Lurton is a great name.
So his wife, Myra Sands, is an abortion consultant. Sorry. They're abortion consultants. And Lurton Sands is an organ transplant doctor with a secret. So anyway, the mechanic tells this story about this guy, Ellis, who found a portal in his Jiffy Pop, his Jiffy Cutler? Whatever.
Jiffy
Scuttler, which we don't even know what they do. There's something about time travel in them, but that's not clearly explained. And the dude's like, all right, I know there's something going on with this thing, and it probably has to do with dude's mistress for some reason. And then eventually she shoots our mechanic in the face. And so there's fucking 100 pages of meeting a twin guy that's a conjoined twin.
George Walt.
Who is not really a conjoined twin, or he is, or he isn't. It goes back and forth. Let me just read what I wrote here. Okay, so we do the things, and oh, by the way, there's a whorehouse in the sky run by conjoined twins, and oh, by the way, you can time travel through the floorboards of your little Jiffy Scuttler, and oh, by the way, our puritanical presidential nominee who makes only bad decisions is making more bad decisions and doesn't seem to give a shit.
Well, it sounds like our president right now.
And then our mechanic does discover that there's a doorway to a pristine Earth, or at least it looks like a pristine Earth. And he's like, oh man, look at this pristine Earth. Oh shit, that girl shot me in the face and I'm dead. And so then the company so the owner of the repair shop.
Do you need some help?
I need this book to never have existed. That's what I need. So the owner of the repair shop, takes the vehicle to the big company, to GM, which is called TD in this, and says, hey, there's a portal to another world here.
Development.
And they're like, oh yeah, there is a portal to another world. And then the private detective, who's all of a sudden here, named Tito finds out, and he's like, I got to tell Jim for some reason. So because he wants to be Attorney General for some reason. And so he says, I'll tell you about this time travel, or this portal to another world, which will really be good for you in political ways if you make me the Attorney General. And Jim, being the upright citizen he is, he's like, I will do everything you say.
There's an awful lot of big promises in this book.
And then, so what it turns out happening is that by announcing all this and saying he hates whorehouses in the sky, the conjoined twins team up with the racist racist organization called Clean. Racist organization called Clean, in order to assassinate Jim. They send the dumbest guy in the world. Remember that guy from The beginning, the racist guy that wouldn't let the couple become bibs. Yeah, that's the guy. He's in it for 1 second where he's like, I gotta kill this dude. And then they, blah, 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 nothing happens, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't kill the dude, and then he's never seen again. And then we go to the other world, which is kind of cool. It's like an exploration thing. There's a great space hero who's been all over the place and seen all kinds of stuff. Thank you. Woodbine, and he is probably the only character I really liked in this.
I liked this chapter a lot.
Because he seems practical, and he's like, oh no, his sarcasm was great when he's like, oh no, let's just stand here and conjecture about everything and not actually explore anything. That's the best thing to do. But they explore, they find out that there's some pre-Neanderthal men that actually inhabit this planet, and so it was a split. It's kind of an alternate Earth where Homo sapiens never took over, and what are they called? The Peking. I'm just going to call them the Peking men. Are the
Peaks?
Yeah, are the dominant species. And are you as bored with this as I am? Because I hate everything I'm saying right now.
Well, keep it going.
All right. So they find out this and then that, and then they're like, oh my god, I can't believe it's Peking men. And then the Sal Haim. How did you guys pronounce Sal's last name?
I thought it was Haim, but I could be wrong.
It's Haim or Haim? I looked it up.
I think I just went with Haim.
Yeah.
Because Haim would be Haim?
No. It's actually more...
The flip?
It's the Germanic
Oh,
pronunciation, which is Haim, but Haim is also pretty close to correct. But anyway, so that guy is like, oh my god, these people suck, and they're going to ruin everything. And it turns out they try to ruin everything because the conjoined twin guy is like, oh fuck it, I'm closing down shop and I'm moving over to this other place and I'm going to take over the peaks and they're going to then take over the world and I'll make money. Step 1, take over the peaks. Step 2. Step 3, big profit. So that's his plan. And then Jim comes up with a great counter plan, which is I'm going to pull his arm off and then the peaks will go away. Boom. That happens. He becomes president. And that's it. That's the end of this fucking book.
Okay, so...
Awful. Awful. It's the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, written by, I don't know, a fucking room full of monkeys.
Dang. I do not hate this book as much as you.
Hated it.
Yeah. I see that.
I'm going to put that quote on the next social media post when we release this episode. It's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, written by a room full of fucking monkeys.
Yeah, well, you should, because that's what it felt like, reading it.
Okay, so I do think that there are some interesting themes that Dick is exploring in this book.
Of course you do.
And
To write a fucking 4th grade theme.
Dang. All right. Well, listen, I do think, well...
Don't waste hours of my life with this.
Well, unfortunately for you, people come here looking for some analysis, so we're going to have to do it. So, I do think that there's some interesting things going on. So, first off,
It's driven me to drink.
I personally do agree that this is not a well put together book. It is not. I would say this is in the lower tier of PKD's books. I don't think it's.
It's one step above the Cosmic Puppets.
I don't know.
Really?
I'm right there.
Whoa.
I am right there.
What gets me about the Cosmic Puppets is all the weird, like, look at this supple young teenager shit.
No, I understand why you think Cosmic Puppets is worse. But Cosmic Puppets also has some better stuff. Like the villain, the boy is an awesome villain in that book, at least.
I'll agree with that.
Okay.
This one has none of that. There's
Well, but
no
what I do-
redeeming qualities.
Well,
This is a book full of assholes.
Yeah.
I do think that there are redeeming qualities in the sense that I do think that there is some interesting political stuff going on, and there's some points he's trying to make. Whether he's making them efficiently and telling a good story at the same time.
Oh, absolutely not.
No, he's not. But the bib problem, for example, and I'm going to quote Lampy here on what he said about it.
He's going to make us all look dumb again.
The bib problem and the violence of economic equality, the central theme running through the crack in space, is the violence done to the poor and old when the economy is controlled by one sector of society, and in this case, the economy is dominated by the Jerrys, elders kept alive by artificial means. So...
Oh man, what book is that? That sounds way more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Lampy had to inject a lot into that to pull that out of this book.
Well, you think so, but here's the thing. And
It's never stated as such.
Oh, it's all right there. Look at from the fact that it is right there. You have your character who is harvesting organs from people. Okay, so the people are having to go.
Who is not a Jerry.
Right. Well, listen. There's people.
There's only one Jerry in the whole story, and he's a rich old fuck.
Well, no. Here's the thing. There's lots of Jerrys in the story. The thing is that they're using all these organs and pieces and things in order to make themselves younger and to make themselves feel younger. That's right there in the book.
Where? Point that out to me.
Well, I don't...
Because that's not in the book.
It is in the book.
It is not in the book.
There is a part, and I can go through. I mean, it would take me all day to reread the whole book, but there is a part where they basically talk about how the Jerrys are being kept younger by stealing and harvesting the organs of the people that are put to sleep. And they're only put to sleep because they don't have jobs, which is interesting because that's where you're coming at. That's where you've got...
No, because there's overpopulation as well. They were killing people up until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they're forcing people to have abortions and to go to sleep and to basically... So they have these counselors that kind of talk people into having abortions, right? And then they have the people who cannot find jobs, and that's where he's talking about the violence of the system is forcing these people to go to sleep. That's an interesting concept, and I do think that one of the two chapters that's well written in this book is the first chapter does a really good job of building this world, like right from the beginning. And does it on, let's see, page...
And then immediately abandons all the characters in the first chapter.
Agreed. And that is unfortunate that a lot of the cool things that is set up here... So here on page 2, Blackmore personally doubted it, and he had been around a long time. He was 95 years old, Jerry. In his time, he had put to sleep thousands of people, almost all of them, like this couple, young and dark. Okay, so this is racism and inequality and the system being used to keep the rich people stay. And 95 years old and he's still functioning.
Except the Coles are the majority.
Right.
In this society.
They are, but they're being forced into this situation where they're being told...
And remember, this is the point of view of a racist character.
Right. I got you, and I agree, but what I think is that these are interesting ideas that get suggested, and yes, that they're not explored as much as they could or should be. I mean, you have on page 13, you have the whole, like, where the clean organization first comes in, and they're protesting, like, keep the White House white, keep America clean, and then you have these...
And then they're pretty much out of it until there's that little plot to kill Jim. But they aren't actively involved hardly at all, except for the two thugs that stop the assassination.
And I agree that it is not done as well.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. You're saying there's good themes in there, but I think the themes... That's like saying just because you mention racism exists, it's all of a sudden a good theme.
No, and I'm not saying
that's what this book does. It just mentions stuff.
I'm not saying that it does a really good job of exploring these themes, but I'm saying they're there. And what I think it's done really awkwardly, and this book feels like a 50s Philip K. Dick novel to me.
Yeah, I feel it.
And that was my problem.
I feel like this one should have been in the order of books that he released them in. It should have gone Solar Lottery, World Jones Made, Crack in Space.
Well, unfortunately,
I agree with that, but I think Solar Lottery is still better than those other two.
Well, Solar Lottery is better, but
yeah. Well, and I will say that. Well, and unfortunately, he didn't write this book until years later.
Right.
So, was this one that? I mean,
I feel like this was a paycheck.
Yeah, PKD's got divorce attorneys to pay for, and ex-wives to feed. So, I honestly, Crack in Space sounds like he's in the hovel, like trying to make sure he's got something out, and which, whatever. But I do think that he is. I don't know. Me personally, I mean, I get it that you hate this book, and I didn't super like it, but I didn't hate it.
I didn't super like it.
I didn't.
The worst thing David has ever said about a book in his entire life. I didn't super like it. But this one, I mean, I liked the way he started piling up twists in the first 50 pages or so. Mm-hmm. Like but it was really random. But it was kind of cool where it was like, oh, look, all of a sudden there's time travel. All of a sudden there's alternate Earths or alternate planets, alternate realities. Oh, look, all of a sudden there's a whorehouse in space. Oh, look, the person that runs the thing is a conjoined twin that's fucked up all kinds of ways.
Later manages to convince the pre-dawn men that he is a god.
A god.
Which is a better story that we don't get to until the last, 30 pages.
30, 40 pages. When we actually get to the other world.
This is not a good representation of Dick's abilities.
No.
I will agree with that. But what I think
the best writing in it, though, comes in the last 20 pages.
I think
overly long
to the last 20 pages,
epilogue.
And I'm like, why is this even happening? Because the book ended 20 pages ago.
I mean, I agree. It's an overly long epilogue. But
yes, David,
it's well written. It's well written. There's a couple of quotes in there that I really like.
I'm aware that it's plenty. I know what an epilogue is, David.
Well,
but that doesn't mean it's not fucking useless.
I do not think this is a great representation of Dick. I agree with you on that. But I don't think that it is. I mean, I just don't think it's hot steaming garbage, is what I'm saying. I think it is just aggressively okay.
This book is like if you had a bunch of Thanksgiving leftovers and you decided, I'm just going to make a quiche out of all this stuff that doesn't make sense or go together.
Yeah, right.
And then you put it in and you're like, hey, I can kind of taste sweet potato. I like a little bit of sweet potato,
and
but I sure don't like, and I'm not done talking, and I don't like onions in my sweet potato because that's fucking disgusting. So now I hate the majority of this meal.
Yeah, right.
This book is leftover garbage.
Yeah.
It's Dick kind of pilfering from a bunch of old stories, and I don't really understand why. Because...
Well, I think it's what David said, is that Wollheim kind of forced him into it, right?
I'm sure
Wollheim... He dangled money in front of him and said, hey, put some shit together.
Well, I'm not saying that Wollheim, wrote him a letter and said, Phil, I need a new novel or your toast or anything, but I think he was feeling pressure to have work coming out all the time because he had ex-wives and he had all that shit. So he's definitely, he's not going to be able to register the car. Because remember, he wrote this right before Three Stigmata, and Three Stigmata, that was the huge thing, was that he wrote it right around the time that
his car got towed.
So right now, I'm sure he's thinking fuck, I gotta get another novel out, I gotta keep it going, I gotta, get me some pills.
As quick as possible.
Get me some pills, get me in the hovel, and I'm gonna write me some Crack in Space. And so,
Whack in Space.
Yeah, and Sonata 140 or whatever, whatever.
Cantata.
Concerto, who cares? Move on.
Yes. So, Yeah, but I mean, there's all kinds of things going on here. This is not the only themes, and I'm going to continue to go back to Lampy since he's a defender of this book, and so we can get a contrary opinion. Lampy also said, the alternate Earth in Kraken space is a failure because it was not what Optimus dreamed it to be, because it was not a blank slate. This is the root of the problem in the great Martian frontier novels of the 60s. So there are, again, like Lampy talks about all the time, is the frontier. And so there are frontier issues here because it's an interesting frontier. And it doesn't seem that weird to us to have an alternate Earth story. You gotta remember, this was the same year that Whitman was shooting people in Texas, 1966. I mean, I don't know how many alternate... in 1964 is when he wrote it.
Yeah.
So in 1964, when he wrote this, were there a lot of alternate Earth stories? I don't know. This is pretty commonplace for us now, but at the time, that may have been a more interesting idea. And I think you always got to remember that, as far as... I don't think that justifies its place in the canon of PKD, but it's just something to note. And also, just like the issues with Frontier and everything that's going on there, like, you know, there is some interesting stuff.
Right.
And, let's see, page 42 we got, I think is where he said, gravity's like Earth, must be Earth then, he decided. Long time ago, long time in the future. And so I like all these things where I think there's interesting sci-fi ideas about...
Is that Turpin talking?
I believe so. Yeah, or Rick Erickson, maybe?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I like all that stuff, and I like that... I think it's interesting that he developed... I'm not sure I like how he did it, but I like that the idea that, you know, Homo sapiens just didn't make it in this other world is kind of an interesting concept. And you have some really fucking weird things with, like, the ice fusion engines. And
yeah, but even that's not explored fully. I mean, I don't...
Well, the whole middle of this book is a lot of pointless Politico talking that ultimately goes nowhere.
Yeah, and... you know, he never really establishes any kind of conflict.
Well, the conflict comes later when we realize that George Walton has become this false god.
Yeah,
and he's trying to take over.
He creates the conflict, but that's in all honesty, last 40 pages.
Right, and that actually needs to be the start or the end of the second act.
Yeah.
And not the beginning of, like, you know, middle third act. It's not to break it down in such kind of boring terminology. There's so much in the middle of this book that could have been handled in one chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bunch of setup that goes nowhere. There's no payoff.
No, not at all.
Well, and then there's, and I believe it's on page 128 of the Mariner edition. There's definitely brought up the concept of the, let's see. These parallel worlds are a knotty problem, he realized. I wonder how many exist. Dozens? With different human subspecies dominant on each? Weird idea, he shivered. God, how unpleasant, like concentric rings of hell, each with its own particular brand of torment. Maybe there's one in which the human type, superior to us, one we know nothing about, dominates, one which, in our own world, we extinguish at its inception. So I think that's like a cool idea that didn't get explored either enough. That fear, but I think those are some of the neat ideas of this weird frontier. And we've seen different phases for PKD already on how he treats the frontier. In the early days, it's like, at the end, we're going to go fly off to the frontier and it's going to be great. And then we got Martian Time Slip and Three Stigmata where it wasn't so great. It wasn't so great, and we're doing drugs just to fucking make it.
Right.
On the frontier. And then here's a complicated one because the frontiers look like the salvation in this novel, and it becomes not the salvation, right? And I do think that how that fits into...
Because they freak out. I mean, basically what happens is 30 guys go over to this alternate world, freak out, kidnap one dude, and then leave. That's
Billy
what
Ray Smith.
happens. Holy shit! Let's get the fuck out of here! I mean, they don't try to do anything.
Well, and it is an interesting. When you look at Philip K. Dick as a writer, and for me, after all this, I think one of the interesting things is how this plays into his frontier themes.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that that's interesting. Now, again, does it justify this novel? No, it doesn't. But could it have been explored better? Sure. I think what happened is this novel ended up at SMLA a little early, and what somebody should have been like, you got something here, Phil, but you need to do this, 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 and this. And instead they were just like, all right, let's go.
Pump it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here for a second. I'm going to read this passage, and then we're going to, unless David has some other stuff to read, move
Go,
on.
do it.
I'm a little bit bored.
Oh, I'm so shocked. The video image became clarified then. It was a head. The mutual head of the mutants, George Walt.
That was my next.
Its mouth opened and it spoke. I am king now, George Walt declared. I have at my disposal up here an entire army of what you'd like to think of as near men, but which are actually, as you are about to find out, and not from me, the legitimate tenants of this world and every other alternative Earth running parallel to us. You'd be surprised at the type of scientific discoveries which the Peking race, and I can call them that merely as a means by which to identify them, have made over the centuries. They can, for instance, warp time and also space to suit their needs. They've tapped sources of energy unknown to you Homo sapiens. I have with me, here in the Golden Door Moments of Bliss satellite, the wisest and kindest philosopher from among their great people. Just a moment. George Walt's head disappeared from the screen. So that comes 169 pages into a 203-page book, and that's what this fucking book should have been about.
And then we get a story.
And then we get
I have that highlighted too. So
it is.
He also calls the this super, advanced being an idiot to like 5 seconds later.
Well, George Walt is a con man.
Yeah.
Which is a much more interesting, and I actually do like the scene where they shoot his second body, and you realize that he's been faking it because his brother, like, the body died a long time ago.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
interesting.
Which
but
they
then we
say,
jettison
but then
that
it
later.
also says that he's just one guy.
Yeah, it was a little confusing.
It was
because,
very confusing
there. But
because he even calls himself me at one point.
There is way more of a story there than the 40 to 50 pages of, hey man, come over and have a beer. Boy, that stuff Jim Briskin's doing's pretty crazy. Anyway.
Yeah, he's almost like as interesting a character as Palmer Eldritch.
And then Tito Caravelli is like, oh, I'm working for Lurton Sands' wife Mira, but I'm also working for Jim Briskin. You pick a lane, sir.
Right.
So...
Well, listen, the George Walt thing, I think, and the transhumanism part of this story is really interesting and underutilized. Again, you could have done more with that.
It would have made more sense to me if George Walt did become this false king to a race of people in an alternate Earth that we basically treat like shit.
Right.
And he also goes back in time, so he's there for
also not clear.
Oh,
not
well,
clear.
it does that thing that I think we talked about in the last book where all the interesting stuff happens not in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, all of it happens right off screen.
Yeah.
Off the page.
Well, I will agree with you that the George Walt stuff and him going back in the army stuff is some of the most interesting stuff and makes him the most fascinating character in the book. I agree. I do think that, for me, there were 2 chapters that I really dug. All right, and
you're not going to read all of them.
No, no. I think I like the beginning, and I like the political dynamic that is set up with.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, David.
Yeah.
But the political dynamic goes on for far too long throughout the rest of the book, and it's not. There's no end game to the political setup in the first few chapters.
Yeah, I didn't understand it to begin
They
with.
keep progressively talking about the same shit over and over again.
Yeah, I think the political dynamic and the social political situation with the Bibbs and the people that are being forced to sleep, that can't get work, that are having their organs sold out from under them, that is
is really interesting.
But the Bibbs don't
And
really
not- and
play
not-
a part in the book, other than being a catalyst to
they're a MacGuffin.
make the alternate Earth important.
So what I would say is that we have
There's just too many storylines here that don't
so
match up.
Can I make another food analogy?
Sure.
It's just like a sandwich with two awesome pieces of bread and nothing with like some junk in between. Because it's like you got good bread here. Okay, you got this George Walt storyline here at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You have some interesting moments where it's set up in the. Well, I guess there are some interesting moments with. Yeah, I think the scenes.
Jim Briskin and
I think the scenes with him and his
Sal.
his half brother or whatever is all very interesting. But I think the beginning and the end of this book have some really cool things. But I also I love the scene with Woodbine, the explorer,
Mm-hmm.
going to the alternate
It's a good
Earth
scene.
and looking at the space charts and basically hey, you're not on another planet, sorry.
Yeah, and Turpin, I liked Turpin. I thought he was a good characterization of an old rich guy.
Turpin's an 80s
Totally.
villain.
And you guys,
Totally out of touch with reality. He's like, well, this is what I want. I'm old. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna get it. And I liked that. I don't like that character, but I like that characterization.
so you guys give me shit, but Cosmic Puppets, there's nothing I look back on it and go there was a good idea.
I'm not going
here.
to give you shit about that. That
Yeah.
looks terrible.
The boy with the spiders and everything, that
It
was
did
awesome.
nothing for me. So
Yes, it did. We can
Pull
listen
up
to the
the-
episode
All
right
right.
now.
Bring it back to Kraken Space.
but what I'm talking about is now.
We have it on tape, David. You can't lie now.
All right, so here's the thing. Looking back on it, though, there's nothing in that book that makes me want to go back to it or
No, God, no.
Yeah.
Although maybe you should reread the whole 13-year-old girl being stripped down naked part.
Well,
Why?
I don't.
Because he didn't get it the first time, remember?
I
He was
kinda,
like,
I
"Oh."
glossed over it a little bit because I tried to put it out of my memory. So here's the thing.
She gets covered in honey. It's weird.
It was
really
weird.
Yeah, I know. But here's the thing. So I do think that, for example, when we get to adaptation, I do think that I don't think you could make a faithful adaptation to this, but you could take some of the themes and kind of do a course correction.
Well, yeah, I think you have good potential with the alternate Earth. You have good potential with the whorehouse in the sky, and you have good potential with the what else?
The
The
transhuman,
space explorer.
the transhuman.
Well, I think the
Character.
transhumanism comes with having the
the
brothel in the sky.
brothel
Yeah.
in the sky.
Yeah,
But those elements are the interesting elements. I didn't think the political election part, which is relevant to our lives, definitely, but it wasn't generally considered interesting to me. You know, it was just
Well, it's because it
and that's
never
Jim.
has.
Jim wasn't someone I wanted to be president.
no.
But a better story would have been Jim going up to the brothel in the satellite and trying to kind of follow through with the plan they had earlier.
Yeah, you get rid of the Bibbs. You make the whorehouse his big fight, right?
Right.
And that makes much more sense. You simplify and you make it, I'm on
the side
easier
of the
story.
brothel, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's a fight we can get behind. Is the morality versus the brothel and
You mean
how that would
story-wise.
work out.
Yeah, and that becomes the centerpiece for kind of talking about the Bibs and how we
right. The
treat
Bibs
this
are
whole-
totally a sideline
Yeah,
sort of thing.
the Bibs are croutons on this salad.
Yeah.
But
Whereas,
unfortunately,
all
the salad is
all
nothing
the
but
food
romaine lettuce.
analogies.
well, and that's the thing is, I think the Bibbs storyline, and for me personally, the idea of the.
But there is no
of-
Bib storyline.
Well, that's the thing is, to me, that concept and
Yeah, it's a good concept, but it's not a story.
I know, but I think that but me being obviously like I'm a huge fan of Staying on Zanzibar. I like stories about environmentalism, overpopulation, that kind of thing. It hits notes that I generally like.
So I think we're ready to do our judgments. Larry, start us off.
The
Oh no.
I was not a fan of this book, to put it
Really?
mildly. I was behind it. I even told Marty when I was like 40, 45 pages in, I really like where this is going. You know, because of all those surprises, everything that was happening was really interesting. I wanted to know more about the whorehouse. I wanted to know more. I hated Jim the whole time, but I could get past that. But then it just fucking bogged down into nothingness for so long and really didn't come back from it. So I'm going to give this 2 floorboard space holes out of 5. Because I can't give something a 1 unless it's not a book at all. And this one's so close to not being a book, not being a novel, that it's close to being a 1. And I am going to put this below Cosmic Puppets.
All right. David?
Yeah, I'm going to give this 3 alternate Earths out of 5. Just barely 3. I considered 2 when I was rating it. However, I think I've been pretty clear. I'm a defender of the ideas that are going on here. I would say this is definitely better than Cosmic Puppets. I would say it's probably even better than Dr. Futurity, maybe even. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing: is I think this is just
at least Futurity had the cum cube.
Yeah. Well,
you guys broke into my spunk box.
Dr. Futurity did make me laugh a lot, I guess.
Dr. Futurity is so ridiculous that I had to not hate it completely.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing is you think he's trying to be serious here, and that's part of the problem, is I think if he had taken this a little bit more lightly and gone a little bit more gonzo, you could have forgiven a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that this book does not have the humor that a lot of the PKD books have, because I think this book really needed it. It could have used... that's not something I'd said previously in this episode, but I definitely think the humor was a little lacking. But there were enough... I really liked that opening chapter.
Even the jokes that he did weren't fresh in any way.
Yeah. So I think based on the strength of the first chapter, which I think is really great setup and world building, the middle chapter where they go to Earth, and the George Walt storyline, I can get it up to 3, but that's not a strong 3. That's a very wobbly, shaky 3. And I will say that, yes, I do think this is a step back. This feels like
an early work.
It feels like it should be in a box set with Dr. Futurity and Vulcan's Hammer. And
it's a total B-side.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, don't put Vulcan's Hammer in there.
Well, I like Vulcan's Hammer, but you got to have at least one of
At least it's a book.
Well, but I think that there's elements here, and I really do like the Bib thing, and I do the Bib thing, because I do think that storyline is really interesting, and I think the idea is that he was...
wouldn't it have been great if Lurton Sand's character actually mattered, instead of bringing an empty gun to an assassination?
I would have liked that more if we had continued with the Lurton Sands storyline, because that scene is the one time in this book I thought, oh, that's kind of funny.
Right.
Well, and here's the thing about what I think is good about Track in Space is that I do think that there are, well, it's not executed well. There are political themes and there are social political issues throughout.
David, you keep saying it.
I know.
Yeah, we got you, buddy.
Yeah.
A weak 3.
Well, a very wobbly 3.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the way David said that.
What do you got, Anthony?
When we read the synopsis on the last episode, I was pretty excited to pick this up because it sounded crazy. And I was thinking, oh, how's Dick going to kind of fit all this together? Especially after, we read Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. What did we read before this? I don't remember what the last episode
Dr.
was.
Blood Money.
Dr. Blood Money, yeah. Which, as you all know, I didn't totally like. But there is... This book is the narrative is bookended by two better storylines.
Mhm.
In the middle of it is just this stagnant nonsense that goes on for pages and pages, interspersed with these political discussions. Jim, you can't do this. Jim, this is a mistake. Jim, and then Jim's like, oh, I guess this is a mistake. Let me do this, or I do that. And here's...
I wish Jim would have cared once that he made a mistake.
No, he's
It would have been nice. It would have been nice if he was like, oh man, I really messed that up. What do we do now? Instead of, I guess I fucked up. Whatever. So I lose. I don't care.
And there's too many characters to keep track of. For a narrative that goes all over the place, there's too many stories, too many storylines to keep track of. Which is unfortunate because I do think the George Walt character in Brothel's storyline is more interesting and should kind of be the centerpiece to the story.
Definitely has potential there.
But again, the majority of this book in the middle is it's stagnant. I
can hardly remember what happened in the middle.
It's a sad, wet, empty placenta.
Ooh.
Of a book. And so
you should put that one there.
With that said, I'm gonna give it one artificial arm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I think that's our first one.
No, I think Cosmic Puppets, but this is going to be my
both
second
gave it
one. 2. We did? Yeah, so I guess after we've talked about it, I think I hate this more than I hate Cosmic Puppets.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it 1. It's just...
I mean, I was really close to giving it a 1, but, No,
I understand why you didn't, but for me, one
makes sense.
Aggressively ripped off artificial arm.
Yeah, aggressively ripped off.
I'm like, oh, cool, artificial arm. This thing looks gnarly. What was the story behind that? You'll never know.
What a flat ass fucking climax that was.
This book.
I guess this guy's fake, and you're all fake, and I'm out of here.
This book is like when you're really excited for a lap dance because you're like, yeah, this is about to be great, and it's just really.
Where's this analogy going?
Yeah.
And you end up just covered in glitter and unhappy.
Like mid lap dance, you're thinking, I already agreed to pay money for this.
Yeah.
Fuck. So that's it. One aggressively ripped off artificial arm from Anthony.
Wow.
All right. After that disgusting analogy, we shall move on. Okay. That's our review. So we have left is the movie treatment. So
I think we were halfway there on that one.
Well, whether you like it or not, the exercise is Electric Sheep Productions comes to you and says, "You
make a movie.
Make a movie of this." What do you do? Who do you hire? Who you got? We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but. Of course, Anthony has to have Michael Shannon in the film, so we thought he'd be a good
Michael Shannon in blackface playing Jim?
No.
No?
No,
all right. No, never. No, we thought Michael Shannon as George Walt would be good casting.
That would be good casting.
Yeah.
Are we doing a group treatment? Sounds like? Or did you guys have your own ideas?
I mean, I really don't.
I really didn't have a whole lot of thought put into this adaptation.
Yeah.
So for me, I would probably have made it mostly... I don't even know...
Kick half the cast to the curb.
Yeah.
Because I don't really like...
Who cares?
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Well, no, I wouldn't make a faithful adaptation of this. I would take the very bare bones of the ideas at the beginning and the end and flesh those out.
I think the only way you could do it with all this nonsense that's dumped in here is to make it a TV show.
Oof.
No, I don't want to be in this world that long. But
that's what I was thinking.
No,
that's too much time. That's too much time in this place.
You can make an interesting movie out of this, but I think your focus is going to be the Bibbs situation and George Walt, and I think your main character is going to end up being George Walt in the film, and you're going to focus a lot of it on there's this alternate world, and everyone thinks it's going to be the solution to this big problem, and then your businessman is going to find a way to exploit it and turn himself into a god, and that's your interesting Kraken Space movie.
Yeah, Jim, the character of Jim is just not interesting enough to be your protagonist.
No.
I think Sal has to be your protagonist, even though he's a dickbag.
Well, I like the idea of focusing on the abortion counselor lady.
Why? She didn't do anything either.
Well, but I think her angle of being towards the socio-political aspect of the first part, seeing through her eyes, that you're gonna get to see more of that part of the storyline, in my opinion. And then she becomes a good and interesting foil to the guy who runs the Satellite of Love, right? And they become and that's where I
You can get behind that.
Now, this would be if Electric Sheep came to me and said we need you to adapt some PKD. This would be like way down on the list.
I wouldn't even bring it up unless they're like, "What about Kraken Space?"
Yeah,
fine.
And see, there you go. Cosmic Puppets is definitely one I would do before I would do this one.
Oof. Yeah, I don't know.
I fucking hate Cosmic Puppets, though.
I think but I can't imagine that this would have been if Phil had lived longer and seen the movies getting made. I don't think this is one he would put a priority on.
No, that's
either.
probably why he didn't talk about it much at all, because it was forgettable.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably like Stephen King and Cujo, where he didn't even remember writing it. Probably. Yeah. And Stephen King literally does not remember writing Cujo. Not one.
Which I like Cujo, though. Whatever.
I'm slowly making my way through the Tommyknockers.
Oh, really? So you're still reading that?
It's my desk book when I forget my Kindle or the book I'm currently reading. I'll just grab it and read a few chapters.
Right. Yeah, you started that one, last year?
Yeah, pretty much. I'll read it right around the time I get around to reading Final Blackout.
Which you promised the listeners you would read.
I did.
Okay, so what have we got going next?
Earth is trapped in the crossfire of an unwinnable war between two alien civilizations. Its leader is perpetually on the verge of death, and on top of that, a new drug has just entered circulation. A drug that haphazardly sends its users traveling through time. In an attempt to escape his doomed marriage, fucking shocked that we're doing this again. Dr. Eric Sweetscent. This is the name I needed.
Right?
This is it.
Keep reading.
Dr. Eric Sweetscent becomes caught up in all of it, but he has questions. Is Earth on the right side of the war? Is he supposed to heal Earth's leader or keep him sick? And can he change the harrowing future that the drug has shown him? We are reading Philip K. Dick's Now Wait for Last Year. That sucks. That's it, folks.
I like that title.
Now wait for last year?
Eh.
Yeah, we'll find out.
We'll find out if I should.
We'll find out if Don Wollheim came up with it or not. Next time. Stay tuned.
Keep paranoid. Paranoia.
Be all paranoid.
Stay paranoid.
Bye.